Today we're going to be installing qBittorrent on TrueNAS Scale. There's a couple things that we have to go over because it's not as straightforward as you might think. So hopefully this will resolve any of the issues that you might have been having. Now, just like every other video we've done on this, let's start with the internet. And after logging in, over on the left side here, we can go to Apps, and all the way over on the top right, we can go to Discover Apps. And in the search, right under where it says Discover, let's type in qBittorrent, and there it is right there. So we can hit install. Now, obviously we have to go over that disclosure. Don't use torrents for piracy, all that other stuff. So what we're going to be doing is using qBittorrent to download movies and TV shows directly to the respected folders that Plex is going to be accessing. So that way everything is done on the server and these will download, go in there, and then they'll just seed forever. This is basically a seed box. So let's scroll down. We're not going to touch any of this right here until we get to the storage configuration. For the qBittorrent downloads storage, we're going to change this to a host path. And the host path for the Plex data is going to be Mount, Galaxy, and Media. So now this right here is going to open up in qBittorrent as the downloads directory. So within here is where I would add, say, TV shows if I were downloading a TV show, or movies if I'm downloading a movie. But because I want to be able to access both of those directories, I'm going to leave it here as media for the root directory within qBittorrent. Now, that's it. That's all we have to do. We don't have to do anything else. So it seems like it's going to be really easy, but after this is finished installing, we actually have like some more technical stuff to do, I guess, because we're not going to be able to log in. The password's not going to work. Now that qBittorrent is running, if we go to the web portal, it's not going to work. We're going to ignore this error that happens no matter what, but this is the page that you want. Now the username by default is admin and the password is admin with no space in the middle. So if we log in, invalid username and password, it's not going to work. So that's awesome. That's super convenient. We're going to fix this. So let's stop qBittorrent. And now while that's stopping, over on the left side here, we're going to go to System Settings and we're going to open Shell. Now within the shell, all the commands are going to be in the description, but the first thing that we have to do is going to be specific to your use case. So if we go to the storage and find the pool name, in my instance here, it's called Galaxy. And for you, you're going to have to type in whatever you've called your pool. Let's change directory /mount with MNT /galaxy and /ix-applications. Now, just to do this a long way so I can kind of show you what we're doing, we can ls to show everything in this directory. And we want to change the directory to releases, which is this one right here. So we're just going to change directory releases. And then again, ls to show what's in there. We're going to change the directory to qBittorrent. So change directory, qBittorrent. I typed that wrong. One more R for you. There we go. ls again. We're going to change directory to volumes. We're going to list everything, change directory to ix_volumes, list it again, change directory to config, ls one more time, and we can change the directory to qbit with a capital B torrent. Now in here is where we're actually going to edit a config file. So we'll just list this again just so I can show you which file it is. And it's this one, the qBittorrent.config. So we have to use sudo nano and then qBittorrent.conf. Now we have to enter the sudo password, which is just your password that you use to log into TrueNAS. In here, we have a super long command that we have to paste in, and it's going to be down at the bottom under the WebUI. So we can paste that in. Again, I'll have that in the description for you. We can push Control X, Y, and Enter, and that's going to be the same on macOS, Windows, or Linux. It's always going to be Control X, not Command X, because macOS, it's different, but in the shell, it's all the same. Now, we're completely done with that, so let's go back to the apps and let's start qBittorrent. So we're going to start that up, and now our default admin password is going to work perfect. So we can open the web portal, and again, just ignoring that message. And now with admin and admin as the password, we should log in, and it's just going to work. Magic. Wow. Now we can change that username and password by going to the settings, go to the web UI, and then from here, you can just change this to whatever you want. But because this is only being accessed on the local network, it doesn't matter anyway. Like you would have to physically be here in order to access this. So it doesn't matter. But what we want to do is actually secure this a little bit. So we're going to go to connection. Now, if we scroll down to where it says proxy server, we're going to want to change this to SOCKS 5. And for the host, I'm using NordVPN. So whatever your VPN provider is, because obviously if you're borrowing files from your friend internet, you should be using a VPN. It's also worth mentioning that not every VPN provider has a SOCKS connection. So you're also going to want to make sure that you have one. Now, I'm not sponsored by NordVPN. This video isn't sponsored by them. I just use their service because it's very fast and they have a SOCKS connection. It works on Mac OS, Windows, Android. This sounds like an ad. I swear it's not an ad. Moving on, for the host, we're going to do ussocks.nordhold.net. And the port is going to be 1080 instead of 8080. Now we want to perform hostname lookup via proxy. So we're going to check that box. We're going to check the authentication and we're going to check use proxy for peer connections. For this username and password, we actually have to go onto the NordVPN website. Once you've logged into your Nord account, we can click on NordVPN and we're just going to scroll all the way to the bottom here where we have this nice little convenient button that says set up NordVPN manually. And after verifying your login, you can see that we have these service credentials for a manual setup, and that's what we need. So we can copy the username that it automatically generates for us. Now we can go back to qBittorrent and we can paste that in. And back on NordVPN, copy the automatically generated password and paste that in. Now, everything in here is completely fine. And if you want, you can go to like a website that'll check to make sure that it's all protected, but I've already tested and everything and this works perfectly fine. So I'm not gonna go ahead with that, but if you want an extra step of protection, then you can do that just to make sure that it's not leaking any data. Now, this is all ready to go. Let's download a torrent, something legal. We're not going to be borrowing from our friend internet in this video. That's downloaded. So let's go to file and add a torrent file. Now we're going to browse for the file and let's click this one right here. That's what we just downloaded. Let's open that. And now if this was a TV show, I would just add to this. You don't want to remove that downloads because that's just the default directory. You're always going to want this to start with downloads. So we're just going to add a / and say TV shows for it's pretty self-explanatory what we would be storing in here. Now, if this was a complete season, that would be fine. It would create the show name as the directory, but let's say that we were downloading a show and we would have the name of show right here and then the season whatever, and then in there all of the episodes would go. Or the same would apply for like movies. So if this was a 4K movie, then I could put it in the 4K folder. 1080p would be 1080p, or anime would go into the anime movie folder. But since this is purely for an example sake of how to get this working, I'm just gonna put it in the default directory. So this is actually just gonna save alongside those folders. Now let's upload this torrent and you can see that it just instantly stalls, right? It did just decide to resume, so that's kind of cool, but it stalled at first before going. So what we can do to actually fix that, so if you add tons of stuff and all of them say stalled, we're gonna go to options, we can go to downloads, and we're gonna scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says run external program, and we're going to run external program on torrent add, and in here we can type in chmod -r 774, then a quote, %d, and a quote. So now when we add torrents, they're gonna have permissions to go into that directory. That's essentially all we were doing. But this one here just worked fine because I already set all of this up just to make sure it was working before recording the video, so it must have just remembered that it has permissions of that directory. But that's it. We're now downloading a torrent. It's working. It's just saving automatically, and we have absolutely no issues at all with this. We're protected behind a VPN, so that way none of this traffic is leaking out. So realistically, you could download whatever you want, but I'm not condoning that activity in this video. You know, piracy is bad. Don't do that. Like, actually, like, don't be a dick. Like, if it's good, buy it. Support the people who make these things. This is obviously free for example's sake and for legal reasons, but we're not getting into any of that. So hopefully you found something useful in this video. You know, like it if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already. That's cool. Or don't do any of it. I'm not telling you what to do.